This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
The Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation Limited (NNPCL) has announced plans to loan the sum of $2 billion. NNPC's Group Chief Executive Officer Mele Kyari says the funds will help to boost its finances and allow investment in the oil and gas sector. Joining us this morning on the conversation is oil and gas expert Ayodele Oni. Mr. Oni, good morning and welcome to the conversation.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
What do you make of this report out of the NNPCL?
Okay, the truth is that corporates always borrow money. That's the truth. And there are various modes, including forward sale arrangements. The question, however, is when it then has to do with a country, again, you ask and whether that money is needed. Those are questions I might not be able to respond to. But it's not unusual for corporates to borrow money. And remember that the NNPC is generally no longer a corporation. It's now a company incorporated under KAMA, and it really can borrow money and can do forward sale arrangements like other companies do to raise funds.
I mean, unlike other companies, right, a lot of the reporting around this intention is that the that the NNPC is looking to borrow these funds in order to boost the economy. And when you look at maybe the corporate governance, just the corporate structure of the company, do you think that this should be the focus every time the company is going out to borrow funds?
That's a good point. That's where the cookie crumbles, in my own view. Especially if it's a short-term thing for what's supposed to be mid to long-term, unless, for example, government then does have plans for the medium to long-term. Otherwise, it'll just be a short-term thing which just maybe even plunks us into further economic challenges, because it then means that we have to pay back with crude for crude we have not even produced. So yes, I do agree with you. And from a corporate governance standpoint, it then means that the government has overwhelming influence over its decisions, and it may not necessarily be taking decisions in its own best corporate interest. So that's a very valid point, and I tend to completely agree with you.
There's been some, I don't know if I would call it criticism, right? But perhaps it's a negative analysis, if you like, that there are other oil companies across the world that could probably do maybe 10 billion, 20 billion US dollars, and we are struggling to do just the two. I don't know what that says. Perhaps the question really is, do you agree with this negative assessment first? And then you could tell us whether or not it is an indication, what it indicates. Is it a negative indication? Is it a positive indication that we're struggling to make these funds?
Okay, yeah, well, of course, it's a negative implication. Now, the challenge, however, could be that, the volume of crude you even produce or you have available. Now, people miss something. All of the crude in Nigeria doesn't belong to the NNPC. The NNPC owns anywhere from 55 to 60%, right? It's not all of the crude that government owns. And you speak to the old traditional joint ventures. There are also production sharing contracts. So generally speaking, you can't even raise that much because you don't even get enough crude. You don't produce sufficiently, unless I miss your question. We don't produce sufficiently to be able to raise that volume of sums, which other oil companies may even be able to get. Because you now need to think about paying back. You also need to consider that that's our main source of forex. So if you raise $10 billion and you have to pay so much back via crude, which you probably do not have, then you'll be in trouble, or you'll stand at risk of breaching the terms of the loan, and no one is going to then give you a loan in the future. Recall the 5 C's of lending: your character, your credit, credit worthiness, so to speak. All of those issues do matter. Otherwise, you will get into trouble in the future. I guess that's why they couldn't. So, yeah, it could really, to be honest, quite negative. Could be considered that.
Just, I guess, finally for now, right? There's a question on the last figures of our oil production. We increased it 1.2 million barrels per day through the month of June. It's just that the increase was by about 25,000 barrels or so, and I don't know what that's indicative of. What are we likely to see going forward? Do you expect that the numbers will jump, or will we continue to fluctuate between this small figure?
Well, until we are aware that government has taken very concrete steps to deal with the issues of oil theft, and the results are glaring. If the results will be obvious to you and I. Quality of infrastructure and investment attractiveness. Because if people don't produce more, then you don't have more. If people cap in or short in, then you don't have more. If you have poor infrastructure, you don't have more. If you have people stealing and you can't do enough to prevent it, then you don't have more. So in my view, I haven't seen anything substantial. I see that the government is trying, and to be honest, some of these problems are historical, and you can't completely blame this government. But I mean, it's the government, right? It chose the job. No one forced them.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not think that you will see any jump in the short term. You may see marginal improvement, but I do not see any jump because I'm not aware of any very, very serious and effective step to stem those challenges that I've mentioned of theft, oil theft, of poor infrastructure, of oil companies producing more.
Well, Mr. Oni, thank you so much for your thoughts, your analysis on the situation, and for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time as always. Our guest, Ayodele Oni, is an oil and gas expert speaking to us on plans by the NNPCL. They're looking to borrow $2 billion, and the reporting says this is to boost the economy. Latest figures also from our oil production for the month of June puts us at 1.2 million barrels per day, a 25,000 barrel increment from the previous month.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.